Now on to our top story today. The Prime Minister is in a political dogfight as he tries to keep control of the Conservative Party over that Rwanda plan. Now, it comes as the total cost of the asylum policy so far has been unveiled as £240 million, despite it not even coming into action yet.
Well, the eye-watering sum has emerged at the end of a pretty tough week for Rishi Sunak after his former Home Secretary Suella Braverman and ex-Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick warned the government's plans to tackle illegal immigration don't go far enough. Joining us is former Labour advisor John McTernan. John, you've been here before, you've been around like we all have, quite a long time. Does this have reminiscences? Does this remind you of other times when a Labour Party was about to march into Downing Street? Does it feel like 97?
It reminds me of times when I've been inside dying governments. There's a moment when you're inside the Prime Minister's office. I've been there on more than one occasion. And you can feel you've run out of options. Whatever way you turn, you call a press conference, you call a vote, you say it's a confidence issue, you say it's not. You just know the doors, the walls are closing in on you.
The end of days.
And you just feel there's a moment when you give up because the party's given up. And when you get out of it, you look back and you go, how could that happen? We had other choices, other chances. But there's something about when the mood of the parliamentary party changes and you can't convince them to get out of it. That's what it feels to me. It's got an end of days moment to it in terms of the Tory party. And you just feel the indiscipline emerging. So if I was advising Keir today, I'd be going, just say nothing.
Yeah.
Don't interfere with your opponent when they're in such trouble.
So it's really interesting you mentioned that. Other parliamentarians have said they can feel power oozing away.
Yeah, that's it.
And so they describe exactly what you say.
Yeah, ebbs away.
Just in terms of this, Rishi Sunak determined, he's got these 5 points. We spoke about this last week, I think. These 5 points that he says, judge me by this, one of which is stopping the boats. He's obsessed with the boats, even though it's 44,000. But no, they haven't stopped. But also, in terms of this legislation, it's very short, 12 pages long, and it's a fiddle, isn't it?
Well, it's a bunch of things. So he said explicitly at the press conference, this is as far as we could go, otherwise Rwanda wouldn't have agreed the treaty. So he said that Rwanda have a veto on British law. That's interesting. But it's also...
But he's also saying Rwanda has a better human rights outlook than we do.
Well, he's saying another thing, which I think is really worrying, which he's saying we can pass a law that disapplies legal protection under common law, under the Human Rights Act, from certain people. So he's going to name people, and you can't get them. So once you breach that and you go, some people don't have the same protection as other people in Britain, well, when you get onto the next group and the next group, it's like either laws and rights apply to everybody or they don't. And the rule of law, English common law, it's fundamental to say some people are barred from accessing
And John, I'm fascinated by your advice, which I completely get, of saying, do nothing, leave them to pull each other to shreds and sit back and with your popcorn. On the other hand, people are worried about things other than Rwanda. People are worried about the huge waiting list. They're worried about the cost of living crisis. They're worried about, teenage mental health. They're worried about shoplifting epidemic, whatever it might be. And none, train strikes, doctor strikes, none of these issues are being talked about.
And our mortgage increases.
Yes.
So I'd be saying we can use this time. Don't try and take the headlines away from them. When the government's in crisis, really, you can't get through. But you're exactly right. Rishi's got 5 silly promises. Stop the boats isn't going to happen. Halving inflation, it's happened technically, but actually, has cost of living pressures gone down? No, they haven't. Labour should be, OK, what's our 5 promises? Make them robust, get the language right, do the focus group thing. So be able to come out over Christmas or New Year, into the new year, and just go, turn your back on that thing, turn into an election year. 5 things Labour will do for you, all connected to health, to education, to crime, to the top-of-mind issues that people will decide the election
Well,
on.
to be fair, Wes Streeting has started to do that, hasn't he? He's realised that health is paramount in people's minds, and rightly so, with the number of people who are waiting. He's actually, very interestingly, talking about the involvement of the private sector, saying that actually the current model is broken and needs to be completely reformed.
Brave.
That is very brave. It's also very un-Labour.
Well, it may be very un-Labour. It's very, very Tony Blair-like, because Labour's most successful Prime Minister electorally was willing to take on the sacred cows. And actually, it's quite like a big reforming leader like Attlee, who created the health service. And so there's something about... Labour doesn't get elected very often. When we come in, things are in quite a difficult state. Blair after Thatcher, Attlee after the war, Keir after 5, maybe 6 prime ministers, whatever. And we have to have a reforming zeal about us, and that has to be, you can trust us to face up to the issues.
And what will Labour be asking Father Christmas for Christmas? Will they be saying we would like, an election as soon as possible? Will they be saying we would like an election in May? Would they like an October election, a January 24? What would suit Labour the best?
A January 2024 election. Get this thing done. Get the election done. 2/3 of voters, when asked, want an election as soon as possible.
But what about turnout? January, terrible month, very cold, elderly people won't go out.
If you give the people what they want, the chance to exercise this country of this government, they'll come out in droves. People want shot of this government.
But do you think you're there? Because that's what I hear on the doorstep. People say, well, I don't like the Tories. I'm not sure about Labour.
I do think we're there because we're on 45% in the polls. That means nearly 1 in 2 voters. Chuck a stone, you're likely to hit a Labour voter. And the thing is, the motivation may well be turn against these guys because they're so chaotic. That's why my other advice would be 5 things we'll do, 5 pledges, 5 promises, 5 clear differences to Europe. Because everybody does want a positive reason to say, I voted Labour not because I hated that mob, I voted Labour because I thought I liked what they were going to do for my grandchildren. I liked what they were going to do for my auntie. Like, you want to make it personal, you want to make it connect emotionally.
Is it a slam dunk?
In my view, yeah, but everybody who's an MP or a cabinet minister who comes on goes, we can't be complacent, can't take votes for granted. And I think the thing is, we shouldn't get in the way of the voters and their rage against the government. We should channel it, we should express it, we should say, look, you need change, you want change, we're the change.
But John, don't you think that before a lot of voters are going to be willing to take that risk? Because although the polls say one thing, actually, if you dig into the polls a bit, it's not as solid. They're not voting proactively for Labour in a lot of cases. They're voting exactly what you're saying, because I can't bear the others. So scratch under that, and perhaps it's not as secure. And Labour does need to have a decent immigration policy, because that clearly is something, coming back to where we started, is something that's exercising people.
Sure, but the two pillars of Labour's immigration, I suppose, there's 2 dimensions, isn't there? There's asylum seekers and refugees, and there's migration. So in asylum seekers and refugees, Labour's really straightforward, which is that we should do processing in France. If you want to come to Britain, don't get on a boat, go to a British
But we've
consulate.
tried that 500 million quid, haven't we? We've sent that to France.
We've given that money to increase the security. We actually just need to process in France, and have an agreement with France. If people get the right to live in Britain, they come to Britain. If they don't have the right, that France and us will pay for them to go back to where they came from. So I think you can actually sort that out if the French government trusted us and we want to put our staff there. On legal migration, I'm personally really proud that so many people from around the world want to come to Britain. For me, it's the greatest country in the world. Why wouldn't you want to come and live here and work here and contribute? And we need workers in healthcare, we need workers in social care, and it grows our economy. And every year, the headroom in the autumn statement that was in there, the OBR put it in it because they know migration's growing, and that grows the economy, and that gave the ability of Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt to offer some tax cuts. Now, growth is what we need. Now, can we spread the new workers across the country? I hope so. Are there vacancies in social care and hospitals all around the country? Yes, there are. Now, we need to get that balance right, choosing the skills. But the one thing that's worked since Brexit is it's been British rules choosing which workers come to Britain. The thing that's not in control is the coast. Now, that's why Rishi says stop the boats, but he's not able to do that. So you've got to find a way to stop the demand, stop the drift, deal faster as well. How many people is it now? Civil servants deal with 3 or 4 cases a week of asylum claimants. If you did 10 times as many, we wouldn't have a backlog.
Yeah.
And I think people want firm but fair migration rules. They want them to be firm and applied, but they also want them to be fair because we are a fair country.
And a bit of efficiency.
Yes, yes.
And efficiency. John, thank you very much indeed. John McTernan there.